Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul-driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Amy.
How are you today?
I'm really good. You look radiant.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel good today. How about you? You look fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, and follow us on YouTube to look at two fabulous radiant beings. You were sharing something with me earlier that I think would be really beneficial for everybody else to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing. But you've been going through something that's been making you feel kind of crabby. And you're
Yeah.
kind of hard on yourself for feeling crabby. But then you said you made a decision today, and that's why you're having such a good day. So what was that decision, and how can we all be like you?
I did make a decision because yesterday I was crabby and I was like, I've had it. This is it. I'm going through a foot problem. I've been wearing a boot for um I don't even think it's been a week yet, but apparently I don't have any patience for boots. At least not these. Like I've got all the patience in the world
It's
for
really
good.
interrupted your day to day, right? And
It
how
has.
life.
It has. So I've got to really like my schedule day to day is like get up, go on the porch, have my coffee, journal, go to work, not go, but work. Um, After work, I either go for a walk and then meditate, or I meditate and then go for a walk. But those two are combined in my head, apparently. And I go for a brisk walk, 2 to 3 miles. That's what I do. And then I
Also your time in
garden.
nature then too, right? Or
It's
as much
my
as you can get
time
in
in
suburbia.
nature. Oh, yes. I find feathers. I'm like connected. It's wonderful. Um, so anyways, I'm in pain and I'm wearing this boot and I'm clunking around. It's pretty hard for me to sneak up on people anyways, because I have a tendency to be loud, but there's no sneaking up on anyone with this boot. But it's to the point where like I've had to be driving to libraries this week. So to drive, I have to take the boot off, put a shoe on, drive, then get there, take the shoe off, put the boot back on.
I can
Anyways,
see why you've been crabby. What changed?
so this morning, or maybe it was yesterday, I think it was last night, actually. It was like, okay, what? You're going to be crabby for who knows
Indefinitely?
how much exactly,
Yeah.
indefinitely. No, there's no expiration date on this crabbiness. Is that how you want to live your life? Because that's not fun, and I'm not liking that. Amy Crabby Brain. So I
I
said,
told myself.
I told myself. So this morning when I got up, I was just like, okay, you can either just like surrender to this and be crabby, or surrender to this and go, okay, this is what it is. What can I do to make myself feel better? And if I am happier or feeling better, maybe my foot will feel better. So I got up and I did some smart things as far as taking care of my foot, because there's two possibilities of what it could be. So I decided I'm going to pretend it could be either one, and I'm going to do the things for my foot that will help either one of these things.
And even
And
if it isn't those things, it's just good for your foot in general, right? Like
right, it is good
crazy,
for,
weird,
yeah.
experimental things. Like it's just best health, best life. I need to invest
Yes,
in my
yes.
body right now.
Yes. And so I just decided to have a good attitude, put my foot up, put some ice on it. And then I went about my day. And I don't know if it's because I decided this, but it was like a switch was flipped and I felt better. I felt, more energetic next show. And I was able to do more things today and to do them well. Whereas yesterday, I think at I stopped working at 4:30, laid down and fell asleep for an hour. So there's that.
And, sometimes, especially when it comes to pain in our bodies, do what you need to do, right? You don't always have to be like, I'm going to be. Sometimes you do need a nap, right? Sometimes you do need rest. Sometimes you do need, your body is telling you to take it easy. But I absolutely loved, you said, I decided to have a good attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And how often, I know I do, wake up and I just feel like the attitude I wake up with is the attitude I'm going to have that day, right? Like, so many of us just accept where we are and don't realize that we can change it. And it can, some days is easier than others to,
Yeah.
and again, the energy, like you mentioned, some days you have more or less, sometimes other things are going on that can impact it. But
Yeah.
how many times do you allow yourself to just sink into whatever it is that's bothering you, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, right? And then how does that impact your day versus saying, nope, I'm going to live as well as I can today, right? Like these are my goals and I'm going to do my best to get to them with a good
Mm-hmm.
attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was
Yes.
just, I don't know, that's very inspiring and motivational. I don't know if I'm always going to do it, but I love
I
that.
don't know if I'm always going to do it.
But like you declared, right? Like you
I did. Yeah, I did. I did. And you know what? The other thing is too, is that before I got out of bed, I said the one affirmation that's sort of like the all encompassing one every day in every way. I am getting better and better. And I said it 5 times out loud before I even threw the covers off. So I think
Well, and
that
that's,
helps too.
I mean, I woke up the other day really early dealing with some stuff, and I just said out loud to myself, what the hell, Tracy? So you were a lot kinder because I was like, you got this and you got this and you're doing this and you need to do this. Like, what the hell, Tracy? And that got me out of bed and got me doing things that day. But I like yours better where I decided I'm going to have a good attitude because I was
Kind to yourself.
I mean, mine worked, but it's not really sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's funny. So you're talking about, is this how I want to be? And so I think
Mhm.
that kind of also plays in with the topic we, want to talk about today, which is
Yeah.
prosperity or prosperous, feeling prosperous. So when you think about the word prosperity or the feeling or the being of being prosperous, what do you think about? Do you think about anything?
Yeah, I mean, I do. And it's funny because I realized that we did talk about abundance. And with abundance, I have a, a wider idea of abundance. But with prosperity, sometimes I do kind of go to that tangible thing. But yet, I also know that it's a feeling
Hmm.
and that it's not just like money in the bank, right? Land ownership, money in the bank, it's a feeling. And
Yeah,
so I get, yeah.
I think so many people with prosperity, it's like this feeling or imagery of Scrooge McDuck or whatever his name is in the water tower swimming in the gold coins, right? And not sharing with
Yeah.
others and just the definition is to achieve success, right? And so for
Oh, yeah.
me, prosperity for me when I do think of it and how it's different than abundance because they're really similar as we'll get into, but for me it's about longevity. It's about a long life and how you want to feel in the long haul, so
I
like a
like that.
long goal. um,
Yeah.
and for I do when I do hear it, I do think of that externally driven financial material success you mentioned, but I've been more intentional lately with trying to think of it as more as wealth in all things. And so,
Yeah, I like that. And you know what else? I just realized it made me think of legacy.
ooh, yeah.
And not just legacy as in like I can give my home or land to my children legacy, but just like what legacy are you leaving behind? What did you give to the people around you? I don't
Well,
know. It just came to me.
and with the longevity of prosperity for me, it's also about
Mm-hmm.
sustainability, right? It's not a flash in the pan manifestation. It's not a
Oh,
winning the lottery,
yeah.
like I want
Yeah.
abundance in this or I feel abundant in this at this point. Like it's sustainable long term. Like you've built something up and you're able to maintain it.
So do you think of maybe abundance as sort of like a swift word and prosperity as maybe a slower
Yeah.
word?
Yes.
Okay.
Abundance to me feels very in the moment, whereas prosperity, again, is a lifetime
I
longevity.
love that definition. I feel like now I just have this whole different attitude about that word.
Well, and so to me, the prosperity is a culmination of everything we've talked about. And so
Yeah.
abundance is a part of prosperity,
Yeah.
and abundance and prosperity are both definitely, they're mindsets, right?
Hmm.
Like we can measure it externally and put societal definitions on what it looks like or even individual ones, but it's a mindset, right? Like you can have absolutely no material wealth and still feel like you've lived a prosperous long life, right? Or even
Damn straight.
what's the show, Star Trek, Live Long and Prosper, right? Like
That's right. And when I think of live long and prosper, I think of like health and uh, well, other words that aren't coming to me right now. But anyways,
happiness, time,
yes,
freedom.
yes, yes, all that.
Yeah. So for me, so again with that longevity, so abundance is a mindset and prosperity definitely can be, but prosperity, in going with that theme of a long, prosperous life, is about flow, right? Like when you feel
Ooh,
prosperous, you're kind of flowing through life.
yes,
Um,
yes,
what I love about the actual definition is that it also encompasses the word flourish, right? Flourishing, to thriving, good fortune. The Chinese culture is really big into different symbols around prosperity, different feng
yes,
shui can be focused on prosperity, but it's typically around that financial prosperity too.
yes, yes.
Um, but
I okay, I love the flourishing and thriving. I love that. And I also, just so everyone knows, I painted our front door red on purpose, and that was because of
I bought my house because of the red door.
See?
I mean, that's probably 60% of the reason why I bought this house was it had a red door. I will never change that door.
There you go, feng shui, everyone.
I didn't know it at the time, but I liked it when I saw it. It meant
Yes,
something, right?
yes,
Um,
yes,
but I think furthermore than just like prosperity is fullness, right? So
yes.
in prosperous in wealth, prosperous in health, prosperous in love. Like it's about having a rich and full life. And
Mhm.
everybody's going to define that differently.
Yeah.
Somebody else's example of, oh, I'm really prosperous in my life, I may look at and be like, no, thank you. Like, and they might look at mine and be like,
Yeah.
you need so much.
So what do you like for you? What's your rich and full life?
For me, and I'm not there yet. I definitely feel prosperous, but like when I think of the word success and prosperity, to me it's about connection, right? It's not
Yeah,
about my
that makes
job, it's
sense.
not about my bank
Hmm.
account. It's, do I feel connected? I definitely kind of liked that terminology around freedom and time, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm always really big, like I always, if you're not early or late, kind of a mindset. And so when people show up late, it really irritates me because you don't get to waste my time. I can choose to absolutely waste my time. I've spent my share of time on Candy Crush and ridiculous things, but that is a choice. How dare you waste my time? That's mine.
Okay, and then for me, I would say there's no such thing as time wasted.
I don't know, sitting around waiting for half an hour for somebody to show up for dinner. I feel like I could have done other things.
And that's why I always have a notebook and pen with me.
Again, you're my inspiration. Your best case scenario. I'm middle of the road frustrated.
No.
But so I think also with prosperity, there's a privilege to it, but you can go
Yeah,
to communities that are completely different than the most, stereotypical prosperous in America. And somebody there can feel and actually be and have the energy of an incredibly prosperous person, right?
right, right.
So it's individually defined and driven, but externally judged and measured.
Yes. So that's hard because or it could be hard for someone if you weren't, didn't have good boundaries or energetic boundaries put up where you're like, I feel prosperous. And then there's like three people judging you.
Well, and I also, in judging yourself. So I feel like, from like 1980 to 2010 can really be defined by keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
sweeping changes in technology and the housing market and college and all this stuff. And so we
Yeah.
had a lot of external identifiers of success and prosperity in America. And now, from like the age of social media, 2010 on, it's not just that life, the life of the influencer and the person that has stuff, but it's also their health, their what I eat in the day, their body, their perfect relationships, their clothes, like you're really able to paint this 2D picture of a perfect life. But I don't know if you've ever accompanied a social media influencer or helped take a picture or seen them in public, or they call them Instagram husbands. Like, I know I go hiking and I experience the moment, and I will see people like posing with a tripod and like making it look like they're moving and they're active. Or I know people who will run a certain distance, set up a tripod with a camera and a timer, run back, and then run to capture the moment, right? Like they're capturing this moment on their own. They don't have anybody with them. And I was like,
Right.
it's so simulated, right? Like, and the best intentions, but that's so fake. You're not in the moment and you're making it seem like something. Like every picture, I just remind myself, somebody took that, right? Like somebody was there. It was intentional. They edited it. They took out they deleted the ones they didn't like. But like, we went from keeping up with the Joneses to only showing the best parts of life. And
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're 100% right. Social media forced us to feel, or we forced ourselves to feel like we could only show the highlights.
yeah. And that if you're
Wow.
showing the low lights, you're doing it for attention, right? Like
Wow.
the different
Yeah.
level there. So
Yeah.
it's just like this hyper curated 2D life that now people think they have to live up to. And like, how many people, when they say like, oh, I quit Instagram, I quit Facebook, are like, best thing I've ever done, right? Like,
Right.
I haven't been on Facebook in 10 years, never going back, never doing it. And I
Yeah.
didn't know I was consciously doing it at the time. I thought I was more aware of it, but it's really hard to see people interacting and only posting all these amazing things and feeling like you're missing out, or that you're not at that same level. And as soon as you get rid of that, you feel so much better in the connections you do have and what you are doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then also with that privilege piece, to go back to that. So there's a scarcity mindset and an abundant mindset, which we've talked about in other episodes.
Yeah.
But you being and feeling prosperous does not rely on someone else being poor or having less than you.
Right. And I think that is one of the hardest things. It feels like it's a sticking point for so many people. You can talk about abundance mindset, lack mindset, prosperity mindset. You can talk about these things, but I still feel like it's a sticking point. And I still feel like there are people who still think that maybe there shouldn't be. I mean, I sort of get people when they say there shouldn't be multi-billionaires. Like, I kind of get that. But then there's another part of me that's like, but they did that. Like, there is a part of me that's like, but that was the choice they made. I don't know. And did that
On
take
the
away
backs
from
of
you?
others.
On the backs of others, right?
They
Yeah.
typically didn't do
So
it alone.
that's a different thing. But me having a life of prosperity is not taking anything away from the person who lives next door to us, or the person who lives in New York, or anything like that. I feel like this is such a sticking point. There's not a finite amount of thriving, right? There's not a finite amount of thriving.
And I think it's really, what do I want to say here with this? I should have fully thought it out before opening up my mouth on a microphone. Um, it, it's really easy to compare, right? And
Mhm.
and you shouldn't do that. Like, if you are actually living a prosperous life, doesn't matter what anybody else has. It's an internally driven thing. You have defined it. So in
Yeah.
order to do that, you have to know, and intentionally think of and work out and revisit what is success to you.
Bam.
Do you do
Right?
that? Like we've talked before, like we talk about goal episodes and we know about goal setting. And then when we kind of sit down and, hash it on air, we're like, well, what are our current goals?
Yeah.
What are our big dreams right now? And so it is one of those things where you're like, oh, well, I want to be rich. I want to be in love. I want to be abundant. But like, have you sat down and like, what does that look like? What is rich to you? Do you have a number you're hoping to achieve? And are you actually going to be happy when you achieve it? Right? Like,
Right. Which is why I don't have a number,
I have a
but
feeling state.
yeah, I have a feeling state too. Yeah, I have a couple of feeling states. I wanted to bring up one thing that about comparing,
Mm,
which it's sort of a little bit backwards comparison. When Nathan was applying to colleges and we had to do the FAFSA, you do the FAFSA and you fill out all the work and you see if you get the grants and the free money or the not free money or whatever. Right. And the amount that we made, Rick and I, we're not getting money from the government. Like, yeah, we can get a government loan, but they're not giving us
so on
money.
the one
So
hand, you should feel
no,
prosperous
well,
because you have
no,
money,
no,
right?
right. But so I just want to share the reaction. So Rick got upset. He was like, what? It's not, well, we're not like in his head, he's like, we're not rich. Why is that fair? We don't get money from the government. Why don't we get money from the government? In my head, I'm like, isn't that great that we don't get money from the government because we make too much to get money from the government? So because we are actually at a comfortable space, isn't that great that we don't get money from the government?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another comparison where you can be like, oh, sure, because maybe you're not at this level that you want to be, but you sure the hell ain't at this level down here.
Right. And so that just goes back to then, like, do you plan for prosperity in your life? So for Rick, then, in that example, he
Yeah.
kind of didn't want to prosper his life because he wanted the help, right? Or he didn't want to have to be responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you were maybe more like, we have this money, or some people even save in advance. They are like, I am paying for my child's education, right? Like
Yeah.
I know friends
No,
that have that.
Tracy, we totally could have. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, not for 4 years, but
Oh, well,
for
but
what we
so
did.
your son's an 18-year-old adult, and for him to have to be reliant on his parents, whether, like whether or not he gets aid to be reliant on your financial situation, I got screwed. I have 5 sisters. My parents aren't paying for any of our education,
Yeah.
right? And I technically had 3 parents and I worked 2 jobs myself. I got nothing.
No, I got
Yeah.
nothing
So that's
either.
that's a different
Yeah.
conversation, but it's
Yeah.
more like, so my friends that their education was paid for, you could actually look at them and be like, oh, you're privileged, you had it so easy and this and that. But every single one of them is fighting tooth and nail to do that for their kid. That they have a savings that they don't touch. They have investments specifically for that, that they are in essence paying it forward. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, they're just delaying paying for their own college, right? Like it's a domino effect. Like regardless, they're going to be paying a lot of money.
100%. That's so funny.
And so, but like they are planning that prosperity for their child, for their future self, for all of that. That even
Yeah.
before the kid was born, the second they started making money, they recognized, I had this great advantage. I want to give it to my kid. And they didn't even
Right.
have a kid yet, right? Like, and so many people
So
save for their kids' education.
I'm really intrigued by that question. Do you plan for being prosperous? And I don't think does I don't think most people do. I'm just going to throw it out there because we're all like, I want money. I want to be a millionaire. I want this, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And we talk about things that we'll do, but we don't actually sit down and say, well, how would I feel and what would happen? And what about this scenario? What about that scenario? So I don't think I've planned for that.
Well, that brings me back to, I bring this quote up from Ben Bergeron all the time. Happiness does not lie on the other side of success. So
Right.
typically when you set a number and you achieve it, one, when you're thinking of material wealth in that way, your your expenditures typically rise with your income, right? If you're not paying
Right.
attention, if you're not looking at it. So even if you hit that number, you might have more bills. Or even if you hit it and you haven't thought about what it would feel like or what the next step would be, you're usually standing there wondering, well, what's next? This isn't good enough, or it didn't feel like you thought it was going to feel, right?
Mhm.
That's a problem with material prosperity. But I feel like I said, all of our episodes have led up to this. So if you want to start planning for prosperity in your life, do you believe in yourself? Do you manage your time well? What is your mindset? Do you reflect on your actions and your choices? What's your big life vision? Do you have goals? Have you broken them into smaller goals? What kind of routines and rituals do you have to support those big dreams? Like, there's so many.
Every episode we've ever done.
Every episode, except maybe our introduction one, which is too long. Don't listen to it. You know us by now. Thank you. But so for me, and this is a really challenging exercise, and sometimes I do it and I just kind of shut down and I can't think about it because I go more to the
Yeah.
embarrassment or the shame or the amount of work that has to happen. But it's about sitting down and defining or evaluating or just thinking about how or if you are currently prosperous and where, right? So
Right.
it's identifying the lack in your life, identifying where you absolutely are prosperous, having
Yeah.
that threshold for where you want to be, and then what you have to do to get there, how you'll maintain it when you're there, whether or not when you're there you'll strive for more but still feel good. So have you ever evaluated, like you just said you don't think about it, but like have you ever like evaluated your life and whether on a
Yeah.
happiness metric or success
Yes.
or yeah.
Yeah. I have done that. And then I think that what's happened is that when I see like maybe a certain area where it's not where I want it to be, it's like, huh. And then I don't, and then was like, okay, I'm just going to set that aside now. Now, I haven't done it for quite a while, but I will say I had an epiphany, and I might have talked about this on the podcast, but oh well, here you go again. During my last staycation, I knew the things that I wanted to do during it. So it was, get out into the garden and go for walks and go swimming and do this and write and be creative and meditate. And so it was like halfway through, I was in the kitchen cleaning vegetables and just like starting to chop them to get ready to make a nice dinner. And I thought, oh, this is it.
This is the
This
life.
is the feeling. This is the life. Yes, this is the life that I've been striving for, and I'm feeling it now. And yes, this is my desired state,
And
this feeling.
I don't even think it was vacation brain, because to me that description of, how you planned your days was you filled your cups with things, or you filled your day with things that would fill your cup.
Yeah.
And how many of us, just due to the day-to-day nature of life and other things, and like you were holding that time sacred and taking it
Oh,
seriously
yeah.
because it
And
was a vacation,
I
right?
didn't
It
even
felt
think
finite.
about this. Right. Right. I didn't even think about this. I spent time with you. I spent time with my daughter and granddaughter and my daughter's partner.
Mhm.
And then I spent time. Who else did I spend time with? Somebody else. Sorry. My friend Cindy. So it was just like, it was like friends and family and all these things. And you're right. It wasn't a vacation brain. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I interrupted you.
But so, so many people be like, well, you didn't have to go to work. That's why you felt like that. And I think that's different. I think the difference for you was, how many of us, when we get up, we don't choose our attitude and then we let little things get in. And then before we know it, end of the day, we're exhausted and we just engage in the things that'll give us immediate pleasure, but maybe not long-term pleasure. So TV, TikTok, social media, phone games, stuff like that. Whereas you, because you had a plan, and because the week was different, you held that time as sacred and you held yourself to do those things. And then it felt good
Yeah.
because you actually did them.
So,
Whereas
but
if you're
couldn't we
not super,
hold? Oh, sorry. So, even if we're working, because my end goal is not to, of I mean, I don't
You want to
want
be
to,
the owner of your time, and
I
the
do want
person
to
who's
be the owner,
paying
the
you, not
captain of my day.
your captain
So,
of your day.
but
You don't want to
couldn't
be
we,
selling your time, right? Like that's what work is. You're selling your time and your energy.
you are selling your time and your energy. You're right. But you're getting paid for that as well. You're
Well,
getting
that's why you're
paid for your,
selling it. Yeah,
oh, right. You're
you're
selling it.
selling it.
Got it. Do you understand commerce, Amy?
Let's
Okay.
let's talk economics. That's right
Yeah.
in line with our mission statement.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just thinking that you still have some control over parts of your day.
And you get to choose your work. Not a lot of people think like that, and I've talked about this in the past, but like I found it far more draining for me when I was selling my time to an employer who was engaging in stuff I didn't believe in, right? Like it wasn't
Right.
nefarious or bad, but it was all about a bottom line, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like how we made decisions. So
Yeah.
now I work for an employer where I'm not the boss, I'm not the core decision maker, but they're doing good in the world, and I appreciate what they do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
Yep.
far less taxing for me to work, and I'm prouder to work for it. But it's about, just think about the weeks where you've like really planned your weeks and you've had these goals for both your work day, but then just your personal life. Like, oh, I'm going to make movement on this, or, oh, I want to fill my cup in this way. And how much that differs from the weeks when you just wake up on Monday and just go through the motions and let the day happen to you. Right.
Yes. And
So
yeah, I've actually written about this where do you create your day or do you react to your day? So, but so back to the questions, sitting down and defining or
yeah. So
evaluating.
and
You've done that, right?
yeah. In order to create your day, you have to know where you are and where you want to be, right? Like, so for me, for the evaluation that I chose that I liked, I discovered it, found it on Pinterest or whatever you have, mind you, when I started bullet journaling in 2016. I don't
Oh,
still do
okay.
it, but so this exercise, it's the level 10 life, and it's by Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning, another great podcast, great books, just about living a really intentional life.
Mm-hmm.
But so for a level 10 life, there are 10 areas. And you rank where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, but then you also kind of fill in or look at it to your desired state, right? Like
Yeah.
some people want to be a 10 across 10 areas. That sounds like a lot of work. Just
Yeah.
to
I'm so
me,
glad
like
you
life
said
ebbs
that.
and flows, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes when
Yeah.
you're 10 in some areas, other areas just don't get the time and attention, right? We're multifaceted humans with a lot of requirements on our time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
so it's the areas are friends and family, personal development, spirituality, finances, career, fun and recreation, giving and contribution, physical environment, health and fitness, and romance. And so if some of those areas don't speak to you, make your own, right? Like
Yeah.
you could totally do it. It's your life. What are your 10 areas, right?
It's
I
your
don't
life.
I don't recommend going over 10. That's a lot. You could go under 10. But so if you're on YouTube, you can see this. Some people create just a bar chart, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 to 10 on the sides, and then on the bottom you rate each of those 10 areas. And then you fill in your little grids, like where do you think you are? So when I did this 5 years ago, love was a 0. I wish I would have had a 0 category. I put it as a 1. Spirituality was also at a 1.
Wow.
Other one, contribution. I was poor and I was working 2 jobs and going to school.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't donate time or money, right? Like, so I felt like I wasn't contributing and,
Yeah.
in that way that's like giving to others, right? Some people's spirituality and that contribution and giving, they're really linked, right? Like if you're active in your church, those two things can go hand in hand. So some of these
You're
can
right.
double up. Some
Yeah.
people, the romance and the friends and family will totally go together. Career, personal development could go together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so for me, that had a couple areas that were at an 8 at the time, sevens, but most of them were actually kind of low. So what I noticed was like the stuff I was high in at the time, if you go to our strengths episode, I was just leaning into my strengths. The
Yeah.
stuff that I've talked about a lot, like the love, romance, flirting, relationships, all that, not a strength of mine, like of the calling that in type. Like, and it was also kind of something I was avoiding at the time because of that, or because I was trying to do more in my career and I was working so much and other areas felt lower. I'm a firm believer. I want to be my best self before I go into a relationship. And so I was like, the other areas have to get over a 5 before I even consider love and romance.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even think about that until they're in it.
Right.
And yeah, and then the other person's like, um, which no one wants to be in that
Yeah, well,
situation.
and some people are just naturally really inclined to good relationships. Some people are really inclined to just fun and recreation follows them, right?
Yeah.
It's all about like uh, understanding what you're naturally good at and giving yourself credit for that. But then, like the areas that are low, do you want them higher? Right.
So
And
that was the question, right? I was going to ask that question earlier, and you kind of answered it with like, who's going to be 10 and everything? Like that just seems exhausting, and something has to give with other things. I remember, and I don't know if they came up with this, but Kristen Brown would say, that there's no such thing as like work-life balance. And she talks about a symphony where,
Mhm.
sometimes this is going to be louder and stronger, and then maybe that comes back, and then this one's going to go
Yeah.
out.
I use an analogy all the time for like marriage and family therapy or relationships.
Mhm.
That idea of 50-50, I don't know where that came from. There's absolutely no relationship where you're ever going to be truly 50-50 and where that'll be maintained. Sometimes it's 90-10. People get sick. People have tough lives at work. You have kids, right? Like sometimes somebody does have to carry, more than the other. And so it goes back to that, is that becoming an all the time thing? And are you okay with that? Or is it ebbing and flowing? Like life,
Mhm.
I say it all the time, life is a scribble, right? Like it's
I
gonna go
love
up and
it.
down, it's gonna ebb and flow.
Yeah.
But so I also picture this level 10 life though, like, and some people will feel tens all the time, but I kind of picture it for me, like once you max out in one, right? Like hopefully it can stay there, right? Like if you've created that sustainability, like maybe once my physical environment is a 10, I will feel like I have more to give without taking away.
Yeah.
So there's going to be stuff like that. Sometimes you'll be in such a great relationship and it just vibes and flows that you can focus somewhere else. Right? Like
Mhm.
if some people are going to be really low on health and fitness, but once you do the work that gets you to that number you desire, that higher number, maintenance is much different than getting healthy, getting fit,
Yes.
getting flexible, all that kind of stuff,
You're
right?
right. You're
Like if you've
right.
never run a day in your life before and then suddenly you run a mile a day every day, the beginning is so much harder than the just maintaining running a mile, right? Like
Yeah.
the running a mile is like nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, then with looking at the tens and measuring, how do you feel success? Like how do you know when you've achieved something, right?
Yeah.
And is it an internal thing? Is it externally driven? Is it something that you state? Like, is it like this tangible thing you can look at and be like, I have this, or is it a feeling?
For me, it's a feeling. But now that I'm thinking about it, is it a feeling because I achieved this external thing? Or I tell you what, standing in my kitchen that day, I definitely had prosperous feelings, successful feelings, like happy feelings, joyous feelings, all the good feelings. So, and it's not like I succeeded at something, but what about
Well,
for you?
for me, I do better when I look at prosperity as like a journey versus a destination, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm never actually going to get there. Like when I get there, I'm done. I'm right.
Well,
Like
right.
I'm
And
maxed out in life, and now we're
I
tallying.
I would say we should all consider everything as a journey and
Yeah,
not a destination. Every single thing
and
is
then
a
that way,
journey.
yeah. So for me, it's definitely a feeling, but it's also something that I recognize, and what's helped me feel more prosperous all the time is holding on to what I've had, the achievements I have had, and that when I've had losses, it doesn't take away from the achievements, that it's not a moral judgment on me. It's not the universe being like, you didn't deserve your prosperity so I took it,
Yeah,
right? Like it's just
right.
recognizing like you sometimes things just don't go how you thought, right? So for me, when my life kind of blew up at like 27, 28, best thing that ever happened, hardest 5 years of my life, but I fully believe I was going in the wrong direction, and one that I believed, was listening to others and how I should go. And the universe just kept putting up roadblocks that I kept scaling. And then finally it knocked
Wow.
me on my ass and was like, no. And so I had to recognize you can change your mind and it doesn't take away. Like the stuff I went through wasn't a failure, right?
Yeah.
Like I changed course and I have new beliefs, new goals. And now I feel prosperous pretty much every day. It doesn't make the times when I don't get what I want any easier, but I think that goes back to that mindset thing. Because I don't
Have
believe
you ever made a list? Have you ever done like a list or a document or anything about past like successes, achievements?
no, do you?
I've I've done it as an exercise and it helps because when you do have failures or disappointments, it's something you don't have to bring those up in your brain. It's on paper and you can just look at it and go, oh yeah, and looking at it makes you feel better.
I kind of like that. I also highly recommend just reaching out to friends. And I think I've shared this
You're so
before,
good at
but
that.
just reaching
Yes.
out and saying, like, I'm not feeling very good about myself. How am I good? How am I prosperous? How am I abundant? Why do you think I'm amazing? Like,
Yeah.
I recently went on like a blind date or an internet date, and it was the first one in a while, definitely since 2020, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I was really hesitant to even join the app because I didn't feel like not that it's a competition, but I didn't feel like I measured up to other women. I didn't really know how other people filled them out. Wasn't feeling super desirable, but I do know I want companionship, right? Like I have certain goals in mind that I want for that love number to raise and to have intimacy. And so I went into it. And so about an hour before the date, I called my best friend. I told her ahead of time, I'm going to call you. You're going to be my social lubricant, right? Like I'm working from home. There's a chance.
Yeah.
I don't want this man to be the first person I've talked to all day, right? Like,
Right.
and then, but also like what they say is the conversation with your friend who's going to hype you up can't be about the date, right? Like it just has to be something to get you in a good mood. But I shared with
Super
her,
important
yeah,
advice.
but
I love that. Mhm.
but I'm so glad I ignored that at one point in the conversation. It was just like, God, I'm so disinteresting and like I'm a terrible conversationist. And like, why
What?
so hold on, wait. I know I have a podcast. How ridiculous. So
Okay,
like, this is how
sorry.
I was feeling for like an intimate connection where I'm not talking at
Yes.
this unidentified person, right?
Mhm.
You and I have a script. We have an outline. It's a little different. There's a little bit thought. So I was just feeling I don't know, just not feeling the best about myself. And then I went and it was not a love connection. But when I came back, I immediately called my best friend on the way home. And I was like, you know what? I'm a goddamn delight. Like, I am a witty conversationalist. Anybody would be lucky to have me. I don't know why I was so anxious, but once I got there, the anxiety went away. And then as the conversation went on, this person definitely, had some area, like it just wasn't a match, right? Like we flowed better in text than we did in person. It's why I
Mhm.
wanted to meet in person so quickly. But like, it's like, I'm awesome. Like, I'm amazing. I'm not going to be for everybody. And that's great because everybody's not for me, right? Like, I reject people as much as I'm rejected, I'm sure. And so it's about, it's a numbers game. But I left there thinking, like, you are awesome. Like, you're great. You got this. Like, you can figure it out. And so it's one of those things where you have to give credit where it's due.
I
But
love it.
when you're
Even if it's
unable to do that,
yourself.
check in with the people who love you and let them do it for you, because everything I learned about myself, my best friend Rosie was telling it to me all along. So yeah, but so it also goes to, just happiness and prosperity go hand in hand in your mind. And I
Mm.
definitely feel like when you're feeling prosperous, you're probably feeling happy, but when you're unhappy, does that mean you're not prosperous? And if you feel prosperous but not happy, what is your success
Okay.
costing you?
That I actually have to answer that question just thinking about it because I hadn't thought about that before. I feel like happiness is can be a state of mind. I realize prosperity can be a state of mind as well. But I think just the fact that we're talking about this state of prosperity or being prosperous and it being this slow, building of a thing, I feel like you can't just wipe that away because you're not feeling happy. I feel like yes, happiness can build, but it's also a mood. I don't think prosperity is a mood.
No, it's a state of being. And
Right.
kind of like luck and other than manifesting an abundance that we talk about, if you're telling yourself you're not prosperous, you're going to create that you're not prosperous, right? You're going to see where you're not prosperous. You're not going to feel it, and you're going to get in
Yes.
your own way of being it.
Yes.
So yeah. And then, like I said, if you're feeling prosperous but not happy, do that assessment, see why. Are those
Yeah.
goals really your goals? Because if you've actually achieved that flow state, there should at least be contentment, right? Like you
Yeah.
said,
Yep.
happiness is a mood.
Agreed.
If you're in a
Hmm.
bad mood and you rate yourself as a 10 in almost all those areas, mm, mm, I don't know, is an external prosperity that maybe you're judging yourself against or striving towards.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's something to consider. Let me know if you disagree. But then it also, so, going back to that, give credit where it's due. I think it's not only an internal credit, but just gratitude for what you have, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
Esther Hicks has a quote, and I hope she said it. I found it on Pinterest. I just realized I failed to do my due diligence and check on that. But beautiful quote. Whoever said it, thank you. It's every time you praise something, every time you appreciate something, every time you feel good about something, you are telling the universe, more of this, please, more of this, please. And
Yeah.
so yeah, acknowledging those feelings, whether they're new or just every day, like you've talked about in the past, being grateful. But
Mhm.
also my friend Darcy, she always says whenever I share like, oh, this exciting thing happened, or like, oh, this person and I flirted, or oh, this whatever. And she's like, that's when you tell the universe, thank you, more please.
I love that. Thank you. More, please.
So it's not about a really specific thing that you want, and it's not
Yep.
it's not focusing on what you don't want. It's recognizing in that moment when something's bringing you that joy, that excitement, that like, oh, this feels so good. You have to take a moment and say, thank you, more, please. Like, this is what I want for life.
Yeah. Take those moments. You notice it. Notice those moments that happen where you're feeling like that. Thank you. More, please.
Thank you, more, please. And if you're not feeling a lot of that in the moment, then maybe reflect and maybe do like a little bit of regression and be like, oh yeah, thank you, more of that. I didn't notice in the moment. I meant to thank you. It's never too late for a thank you card. That's etiquette, right? Like I have friends that got married 5-10 years ago, still haven't gotten a card. Hey, you can let the people in your life know you thank them. You can let the universe know, hey, 15 years ago, that was really good. I'd like more of that, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
So the universe, when I pulled the card, Amy, do you want to share your reaction when you read in the notes what the card was?
Yeah. So we're going through the notes because we do this before the show. We're like, blah, blah, blah. This is this, that is that. And then all of a sudden I said, holy shit, you got the 10 of cups. Sorry.
That's what I said when I drew it. Like I almost all the time I do tarot, I have something in mind for what I would like to get, right? Like I have a desired end state. And this time I didn't. And as soon as it came out, I was like, ooh, that's good. Like that's actually, if I would have thought of the cards and been like, oh, this is what prosperous is reflected as in the tarot, it's the 10 of cups. So the 10 of cups is like this happy ending card, right? Like, so 10s are about achievement, end of a cycle, and cups are about emotion. So this is like at the end of the fairy tale, end of the story. The trials, tribulation, conflict is over. It's the happy ending. It's this family looking out on a vista at the amazing future in front of them, feeling full and connected and oh so optimistic, right? Like there's no, like, the daily life that's in front of them is not a worry, right? So so I have 3 different decks. Every one has the same imagery. Usually they differ quite a bit, but in all
Yeah.
of them, it's this family coming together, rainbows, dancing, calm, serene.
Right. The
And
cups are the actual rainbow or make up
yes,
the rainbow on the top of the card. And
but it's
everybody has their hands up, like being like
hugging each other,
hugging each
dancing.
other, gratitude, hands up. Yes.
But so the cards themselves actually, they mean about harmony and alignment. But what really caught my eye when kind of looking at, what these symbols mean is emotional contentment. So again, not happiness, not joy, but just
Nice.
that feeling of I am content in my current state. And I feel like to feel content, you also have to feel like you're not worried about the lack, right? You're not worried about losing. You're not worried about what tomorrow brings.
No.
You feel sustainable, like it feels maintained, easy,
Yes. I love that. You
in
feel
the flow.
sustainable. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
so,
love it.
yeah, so there's so much energy to the
Yeah.
feeling of prosperity. Hint, hint, hint. Amy, what do you got for us next?
Yeah, there is a lot of energy in that word prosperity. And so next time we're not talking about the energy of the word prosperity, but we're just going to talk about energy, which of course, because we love big topics, it'll just be a just a
It'll be
just a
what
little
we can cover
a
in 40
soup
to 60
con.
minutes.
Yes, exactly. Around energy, personal energy, subtle energy, vibrational energy, all
Energy
things
101.
energy. Yeah.
I love it. Well, if this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcasts@gmail.com. And again, this reminds me, I haven't checked it.
And with that, we hope you have a bright, beautiful, and prosperous day.
Bye.
Bye.